Okay, so welcome everybody. So today I've got a very special guest. His name is Kevin Frost. Now he is 1/3 of the founders of Fusion3 Consulting. Now they are a premier ServiceNow partner and overall ServiceNow enthusiast. A technology geek at heart who, when not in front of technology, can be found outdoors, snowboarding, sailing, surfing, hiking, and just generally enjoying life away from screens. So, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This is great. I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, fantastic. Well, this is brilliant. So, Kevin, now obviously you're based out in the States, for any of our listeners who don't know. And for anybody that doesn't know who you are, would you mind sharing a quick, brief background about yourself, and in particular, how you first got introduced to ServiceNow and how you've achieved such great success reaching your current position?
Sure, absolutely. So quick background. I've always been, and I probably got this from my father, but I've always been a kind of a technology enthusiast and geek, getting in there, and I will call myself a geek because I love to geek out about stuff. But growing up, my father always had stuff pulled apart, or he was trying to figure out how things work and putting things together. So I got that kind of mindset from him, and it just carried through my kind of whole life. I did have some other careers. Sailing was one of them. I was a professional sailor for a while, and I've done a lot of different things, but I always kind of migrated back to technology. Fast forward to, I'm going to date myself here, fast forward to the days of the internet starting, and it opened up a whole new possibility. It was kind of essentially another industrial revolution, right? And since then, I've been focused just in software, and really using software and technology to figure out how, to make people's lives better, fix things. It answers a lot of questions for people. And I was working for an MSP at the time. This goes into my introduction into ServiceNow, where we were looking to replace the current system we were using for, and I'm going to call the last system we were using a ticketing system, right? We wanted much more of a process system and a workflow system, and something that followed some of the industry standards, ITIL being one of them. So I went out and sourced and did a kind of a runoff with a whole bunch of different applications, and ServiceNow came to the top of the pile for a variety of reasons. So then I made the pitch to my CFO and my CEO, which was a bit nerve wracking to go in and ask for, over $250,000, from them, but brought it in, and that was 2014. Brought that in, and I've been a huge enthusiast ever since of the platform, what it can do, what you can, the outcomes you can get with it. So that was my first introduction into it, and I've just been accelerating since then, and more of the platform, more and more applications.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. And what's made you kind of love ServiceNow so much? What is it about the platform that you absolutely adore?
Yeah, it was actually, it was the same thing in 2014 as it is now. I can sit down and listen to a business challenge, right? Get the details of the business challenge, put technology aside first, right? Or how we're going to solve it, right? And listen to the business problem, knowing what the technology can do in my mind, and then be able to take that business problem, put a solution in place with ServiceNow rather quickly, and come back and show people that, hey, we can solve this, right? We can solve it with process. We can solve it with technology. We're going to retrain your people. And just having a lot of those kind of, oh man, this is great. Thank you for solving this. And I just love the platform from that standpoint. It can really do a lot. You don't want to obviously over customize it, but there's so much to the platform that if the first question I always tell people, and I told this to my other managers, bosses, etc., people looking at software in other companies and the companies I was working for, before you go out and source another platform, come ask me if ServiceNow can do it. Odds are they either have an application that can do it or it can do it.
Wow, that's incredible. That is, and it's for new people that are looking to join the industry and looking to get into ServiceNow, how easy is it to learn? Like, where would you kind of recommend that they kind of head towards to kind of learn stuff? So just so we can get more talent into the industry, right? So
Yeah, and it's one thing to get more talent in, and it's to get the right talent, right? So, and I'll qualify that in a minute. But the easy to learn, that's going to be relative, right? I think for some of my colleagues, it was probably easier to learn to myself. And depending on where you come from, as far as your technology background and your comfort with technology. But overall, I would say I would classify it as a relatively easy platform to learn and to even configure, right? There's some, and one of my business partners he's one of the big brains that can make it do anything. You can script it to do anything. I can't go to that level, but I can definitely configure a lot of it. So there's definitely a curve where you can get into it, and you can kind of, the sky's the limit after that. I think the big thing is that it just, if technology and software and solving problems, I won't even say programming, because you don't necessarily have to go to that level to be efficient and successful in the industry. But just having that kind of mindset, I think that's just jump in and get going. I think the training that ServiceNow offers, the fact that they offer what we refer to as PDIs, right? Professional development instances, that you can get an instance of ServiceNow for free and develop. You don't have to be tied to a company or anything like that. You can go out there, and then on that developer site, there's a whole bunch of trainings as well. So there's so much available that's free to start with. And there's paid trainings as well, but there's so much available free. And just get in and find really what you really like about the platform and where you really like working in it.
yeah, sounds great. It's great advice. And you touched upon mindset there. Obviously mindset and attitude, has to be instrumental in anybody's journey, but in particular with your journey, how did it develop and how do you maintain it as well?
Yeah, I think going back to, always taking things apart and trying to figure out how they work, and just having that kind of brain that wants to know and is always inquisitive. I think that if you're passionate about it, right, and you always want to be learning. So my big thing was I always want to keep learning, and if it keeps you engaged with it, it keeps you going, it keeps you excited about getting in there, and keeps you motivated, right? If you're just doing it to say, hey, I'm going to jump into this industry because it's hot right now. I don't really care about the platform. I don't really like the platform, but I can get a job. So that's going to become evident really quickly. And also, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're going to be you're not going to be happy. It's going to show through.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, on top of that, I think, having a resilience, probably has quite a large part to play in it as well. And I'm sure, there's been many challenges, in your personal kind of journey to the top, right? So like, how do you kind of, get back? How do you bounce back from setbacks?
Yeah, this was an interesting. I saw this on the preload of the questions for this discussion, and it's an interesting one, right? Because it happens, right? And it's hard, and it's hard for humans just to have that kind of setback, right? And be able to pick yourself back up and keep moving forward. We tend to overthink things, and I think we tend to get down on ourselves, judge ourselves very easily. So, with the setback, depending on what it is, right? There's different ways to deal with it. I think that every setback, I think it's a great word because it's a setback. It doesn't stop you. it just sets you back. So regroup, take a look at what's going on. If it came from someone else, see how you can engage differently. If it was your own failure and your own setback, which we all have, we may not post them on social media, but we all have our failures. And go inward and take a look and say, okay, why did that happen? What was there, right? And see where I can go a different direction with that. And just really, I kind of to the title of this, right? It's really going beyond and looking at yourself as a human, right? You're human. We're going to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone has setbacks, right? Whether it's a personal setback, professional setback, some of them will take you longer to bounce back from. I'm not going to say they're all easy, but you will bounce back, right? And there are ways to bounce back. And if you need help, reach out and get that help to bounce back.
Yeah, I think I love that. And it's so refreshingly honest, right? It's like, look, we're all humans. We all make it, Yeah. I'm sure, Bill Gates has made plenty in his time, right? So, but I suppose, it's like being positive, right? Don't let it get you down. And it's a chance for reflection, right? So,
yeah. And I think one of the other things is too, is you touched on a point there where it's okay to be down. Let yourself be down. Not everybody is smiling all the time. Not everybody's life is going great all the time. So it's okay. Let that happen, absorb it, and figure out what your next step is, right? I'm not just going to say just move forward, because that's not realistic. That's not how we work, right? It's not that easy to just say, it's a says easy, do hard type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. But honestly, it's like the most simple advice, but it's so true, isn't it? So yeah, no, that's amazing. And I think sometimes you have to be taught this. It doesn't come naturally to everybody, right? No. So in your life, would you say that you've had people who have played some inspirational role in your career, and like mentors, or anyone that's kind of given you guidance to kind of have this such positive mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. There's both personal and professional, right? I think we're shaped by both, and we have mentors in both aspects. And sometimes you may not look at some of the people in your personal life as mentors, and especially when you're young, but as you get older, oh yeah, I got all that from them, right? And one of my biggest ones was my father. I'll just start with that one. He had his own business for a really long time, so you can imagine the amount of setbacks he had and things he had to work through, and just see how he was always laughing. He was always having fun when he could. He was working hard when he was working. And just enjoying life. And he taught me a lot about how to be a human, right? Not just being professional. I think there's a lot of things that translate into both. So that kind of set me up with a base. I probably didn't realize it early enough how much of a base he set me up with, but he did. And then, my brother as well. And, my brother is a huge inspiration for me. He professionally very successful. Personally, he's ultimately resilient. He's gone through some health issues that just astound me at how positive his outlook is, and his strength is through it all. And that helps me take life. You can compartmentalize things, right? Work is work, but you need other things in your life. And then, professionally over the years, I've had various managers and leaders. I'll really call them leaders in organizations that have either inspired me to be like them, or that's how I want to be, or have taken me aside and said, hey, a little bit of advice here and there. One of them, I'll reference a couple of them, was one of the first ones was a gentleman named Gavin Finn, who was the COO at an internet startup I worked at. And he really kind of took me along the ride from a business standpoint and a business outlook, how to look at things, how to examine things, and really spent the time with me, and really kind of shaped a lot of my business mindset. And then next one, Tim Hebert, who was the CEO at an MSP I was working at, his leadership style just really what I want to kind of emulate, right? And one of the biggest things that he worked on with me was not getting emotionally hijacked for things, right? And what I mean by that is when you're in a meeting and you want to just jump in and say something, or you get emotionally on fire, right? In a bad way. Not, obviously we all get excited about things. That's one thing, but in a bad way, right? It just sit back, listen, absorb it, then respond. I'm still not perfect at it, but I like to get there. So I'd say that it's just a handful. As your journey goes on, you're going to realize later on, oh, wait, I got that from this person. That was 10 years ago, but now I'm actually reflecting it. And so,
that's amazing. That's
it's important.
Brilliant.
I think mentorship, finding mentors, finding someone who can help you is invaluable.
So. Absolutely. And for anybody that doesn't have those kind of role models in life, where can they seek that kind of guidance from? What would you give advice there?
Yeah, and that's tough too, right? A lot of people's situations are very different. So that's another piece to always keep in mind as you're talking to someone, as you're looking at someone. We don't know everyone's background. We don't know how they came up. We don't know where they came from. And a lot of people don't have access to certain things. So I think if you don't have that in your life, there are ways. Join organizations, join communities, start participating in those communities. You will find people who are very similar. I think in those situations, be authentic and allow yourself to be vulnerable, and people will gravitate towards that. And you'll find out that you're not alone in a lot of those situations. And then you start to develop those relationships. And it's whether it's in your personal life, you're finding some kind of personal community, some kind of sporting that you like, technology that you like. I know a couple of friends that have gotten mentors through their drone club, right? They all fly drones together, but some of them are executives that they've gotten mentorship from in their businesses. So it doesn't, you don't know where it's going to come from, but the more you expose yourself to that, get out and meet people, I think you can find that. And even online, through LinkedIn, things like, you'll see people that you start to want to emulate and how they talk and how they converse and how they even comment on things, and look for that and gravitate towards those people and reach out. A lot of times the fear of, who am I? They're not going to talk to me. You never know. And a lot of people will. They just, if you ask them there will be people that will say, I'm too busy, I don't have time. Well, that's not someone you want to emulate anyways, right? There's always time to help some people along.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's fantastic advice there, Kevin. And, for anyone who is new to the industry, particularly like ServiceNow professionals who are just starting out, and where should they focus? So they can stand out in the industry. Is there any sort of key markets, key modules? Is there any key job roles that you would kind of think they should kind of do to stand out?
Yeah, I think trying to think about if I can go the module route. I'm not necessarily sure I would say particular modules right now, but there are some that kind of ebb and flow with their acceleration to the market, or they explode. Obviously, anything around vulnerability, cyber risk, because the whole AI thing is an unknown for a lot of people, so that's getting a lot of attention. But I would say that figure out what you like, right? So if you like being able to mentor people and help people out and help people with their careers, maybe you want to focus in the HR modules, right? If you like thwarting a cyber attack, maybe you want to look into the vulnerability response and dive in there. I think that the big piece is find out what you really like, because being a generalist is okay for a little while, but you're not going to sustain yourself on that. You're going to sustain yourself when you find that passion and when you find that, hey, this is what I really like this, and I really think we can solve some things here, and go that route. The other piece is too is that don't always just focus on the technology. There's a lot of people out there to help with the technology. There's a lot of people coming out with technology certs and whatnot, but establish a brand for yourself where it's a mix of the technology and how you speak, right? And how you talk to people, how you listen to people, how you respond to things. Be that thoughtful person as well as that technology person. And that's where you can really start to stand out, is that this isn't just another technologist with a bunch of certs, right? This is someone who is thinking with that technology and solving and producing outcomes.
Absolutely. So yeah, no, that's brilliant. And just talking about certifications, how important are ServiceNow certifications? And is there any particular ones that you recommend?
Yeah, all of them. No, that can get expensive, so don't take me at that
all the way
word.
up to CMA, yeah.
No, the certifications are important, right? I would say that, one, they're important to ServiceNow partners. We have to have a certain number of certified people and whatnot. And also, it's the same as if you had an electrician come to your house, right? You want that licensed electrician, the one that has the insurance, all of that. They've gone through, and I've seen the book that the electricians study. They've gone through their certifications. They've gotten that. They know the code that's going to be done to code. They're not going to wire up your bathroom fan and start a fire. Yeah. So the certifications are important. And so definitely the certifications are important. They are, if you can, find ways to get them sponsored, or if you are working for someone and they can pay for those certifications, I think that's a great way to go. I understand they're not cheap if you're on your own. But I think the focus is to get the base, right? Which everything starts out, and ServiceNow has laid out, and they're getting more and more towards this, where they lay out a learning path, and it kind of steps you through the different certs you need. And almost every path has a base cert, criteria. Start with that, and then start to play around in the system. Start to get into the ServiceNow, get a personal development instance, and figure out what modules you really like, and then go look at the path for that module and focus in on that. It's kind of like going back to my mentor Gavin. I went into him one day, and I have a college degree. I don't have an advanced degree, but I went into him and I said, I was thinking about going back for my MBA, because at the time, everyone was putting a whole bunch of emphasis on, you got to have your MBA in order to get this job and all this kind of stuff. So I was like, well, and he said, well, what are you going to go for? And I said, I don't know, just my MBA. And he said, his piece of advice was, if you want to go for an MBA, go for something specific. Go for an MBA in finance, go for an MBA in marketing. Have some kind of end goal to that. What are you going to do with that MBA at the end of it? And I think that's a big point. What are you going to do with your certification at the end of it, right? Make sure that you have that kind of path, and then focus on that, because it is an investment, regardless of whether you make the investment yourself or a company makes the investment in you. You're going to have that kind of path going forward.
Yeah, fantastic. No, that's brilliant. And, for anybody that, like you say, they are on their own, certifications, exams can be quite expensive. Where can they kind of learn about new features and updates on ServiceNow? Like, where can they, go to sort of remain relevant and in demand?
Yeah. I think, part of the pre-read on this one was how do you stay up to date on all this stuff, right? And I was kind of joking, like, get your cup of coffee or your Red Bull or whatever you need, and let's get going, because there's a lot. But to that point, their documentation site, they do put out the release notes for every version. They do, if you do have a certification, they will do Delta exams on that version, so you can stay relevant. You can go and get your PDI, your personal development instance, and you can get those in various setups and versions, so you can compare side by side versions. You can also get on the latest version and start playing with it and see what changed. That's part of my job is I get in there and I figure out what's changed so I can demo it and do different things and understand what now it can solve, because what it couldn't solve yesterday, it might be able to solve now. And a lot of reading, a lot of playing around with your PDIs. The community, the ServiceNow community is great as well. There's a lot of great people on there giving a lot of great answers. Ask about the latest features, go and do things, go into your PDI and break things and try and fix them in the new version and see how the fixes have changed. But I kind of say jokingly, but it is a lot. And you need to break out that time as those new versions come out, because they also do come out kind of fast and furious, not only from a family version, as they go with the city names, on the Tokyo or Utah, Vancouver, but also every single little application now can be released on its own cycle. So you may actually get faster updates depending on what application you're working on.
Right, fantastic. So yeah, it's brilliant advice there. And you know what, just kind of going back to maybe more of a personal note. So like mental, like an emotional well-being, it's quite a hot topic at the moment, and it is crucial for sustained success. So how do you personally prioritize your sort of self-care, just to so you can manage your stress levels, you don't burn out, and I can imagine quite a demanding role.
Yeah, especially, and it is a demanding role. One, just the role itself, the ServiceNow role is demanding, and then you put on top of that being a business owner, and having people who are working with you and you're responsible for, right? So you have that pressure as well, and that kind of mindset. So I'm not great at it. I'll tell you that. I think it's hard. I think we all had a mental kind of shift, and I think it affected everyone differently, even if we don't recognize it. But as soon as everything happened, and right after 2019, for a couple of years, we were all in this weird world. And that on top of anything else that's happened in your life, never mind what else was going on, that kind of put you into this weird world where, it's now you are isolated. We're not used to being isolated. We're social beings, right? And now all of a sudden you're isolated, you have this, and there's still some of that, kind of lags along. So, it's hard, but I for myself, it is important. I think you can get lost and forget about it, right? Because of the pace of business, and never mind the pace of service now, but the pace of business in general these days, I think you can get lost, and you could work 24/7 around the clock, 365, but you will burn out, and it starts to show, right? Whether you make mistakes, whatever it is, emotionally. I've caught myself. I've had my colleagues catch me, where they just like, you're not right, or they've had to call me out and say, you need to take a break or something. And that's important. It's important to have other things in your life, and I'll say things, whether that's people or other passions, something that takes you away and really shifts your mind, so that you can really focus on something else, and step away from the technology. I try and step away from the screens. Like I said, I don't do a great job at it. And I think it also is very hard sometimes because it gets dark early and whatnot. But get away from the screens, step away from the technology, shut down, focus on something else, get your mind completely focused on something else, to the point where you realize, hey, wow, I haven't thought about work in days or hours, right? And really take those mental breaks, because you need it. It's just, you'll start, I can see it in myself. I don't always catch myself in time, but I can see it happening. And that's where, okay, I need to go do something else and focus on something. Whether a lot of times I'll read a book, an actual physical book, not an electronic book. I'll do puzzles, right? I love, again, solving puzzles. So I'll do an actual puzzle on a table. I go out and exercise, go out for a walk, run, surf. A lot of the activities I do require such mental focus that you can't think about anything else. And I think that's important. And that's the biggest piece of advice, is just, it's going to be there when you come back, right? as long as you are not, in a life-saving situation where you can't take a break, and step away. It's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, definitely. And even like what you said, like when we said earlier in the introduction, where you do a lot of like outdoor kind of sports, that's like the surfing and hiking and snowboarding, it's just total break, isn't it? It's a total kind of distraction. And like you say, it's as hard as it is these days with mobile phones and everyone's got laptops, it's put the screen away and have some quality time to yourself
Yeah,
away from it.
exactly. It's the quality time is what you really need, and also, especially if you have others in your life, whether you have significant others, you have family, you have children. Those are the important things, right? That's really important to foster and keep attention on. Work, yes, it's important, but it's not the end all be all. I think that I also will kind of say, from a leader standpoint, is also to be empathetic on that. I think that's another challenge where we get into potentially a mindset as a leader of just grind, 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 right? And we don't take a second to say, hey, these people are also human. They have things going on. We need to, be empathetic to what's going on. I think empathy is something that is challenged in the world right now. But I think that's one of the biggest takeaways for any leader listening to that is in your organization. Yes, you do need to get work done and you need to do that, but you also need to respect people for they're humans. They're going to have other things going on.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah, and as a business owner, that's so important as well to kind of understand that because I think I read I read a quote once saying that all CEOs, they're really recruitment directors because all they're doing is hiring really great people that can essentially run their company. And if you've if and on that comes treating your people right, because then they will stay, they will kind of help the business grow. So yeah, absolutely. There was one thing that you kind of touched upon where you kind of talked about the COVID days, right? And you're talking about how it could be quite isolating, and and I think for many people, for many companies, they've continued, right? They've continued the remote working model. They haven't brought people back to the office. What advice would you give to people that perhaps feel a bit alone? Like, it's what, nearly 3-4 years that they've been sat at home, probably by themselves, if not in the spare room, in the lounge, working away, in the dining room. Like, how can they kind of have that social aspect back into their life where they're not missing out?
Yeah, well, I'm one of them. We started Fusion3 in 2019. So, and as a startup, in a brand new business, we were trying to keep expenses down. So we didn't have office space, we didn't have overhead. We just, had our laptops working out of our houses. Well, then we went right into the pandemic, right? And so, while we were well equipped for it, it kind of continued on. And we've evaluated over years, all of our workers are remote. We're all remote. We're all working, like you said, in our own separate, blocked off spaces. And it is, I think it's difficult depending on your personality, right? There's definitely certain personalities that gravitate toward it, like it. Although, doing this interview, you may not pick up on it, but I consider myself somewhat of an introvert, where I love talking with people. I love being around people, but it just exhausts me as well, right? So I need to recharge. I think the aspect of human beings, though, is that we are a social being, right? So it's difficult to set yourself up in a fully remote situation to have those connections. I think video helps, right? Just like this, doing this versus just talking into a microphone is a lot better. It's not the true interaction. I would say that to try and keep some kind of relationship, whether they're personal or business, where you can go out to lunch with someone, you can meet someone for a cup of coffee, you can go see your family members that are close. Make sure to prioritize that it's very easy when you're working remote and you're like I am. I'm in a spare bedroom converted to an office, right? It's very easy to extend that isolation, right? Not just you're isolated in this room in your house, but now you're isolating yourself from friends and family and colleagues. People who are close enough, go do that, right? Go meet them. Go, invite your friends for coffee. Reach out. One of the other things too is reach out to people and invite them to coffee or lunch to get together, because they're probably starving for it as well, right? They might be in a very similar situation. So it is hard, even just making sure to get out and run an errand or something every day. My mother's retired now, and it's the same thing. She keeps her day busy because otherwise she'd go crazy just sitting around the house all day. So she's always out doing something. And I think that's important. Even if you're not interacting with any personal relationships or business relationships, you're out there, you're amongst people, you're not within your four walls or your 2.5 walls, however you have your home office set up.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So you're perfect. And look, if you could go back in time, right, and talk to your 21-year-old self, what advice would you give him? And this could be totally non-work related.
Marry rich. No, I'm just kidding.
What's that?
I said marry rich. No, I'm just kidding.
Great advice. Yeah.
That could be a blanket statement for everybody. No,
right.
I think that the biggest thing is that I look back and I tried to put myself back at 21. Right. I'm dating myself. It was a little difficult, but I still remember it at 21. I think I really kind of take myself aside and say, look, have fun, right? You're young, right? Have fun. Everyone needs to, but also start thinking about the future. I don't think I started thinking about the future early enough, right? And I'm not saying you have to start a business at 20 and grind and do all this kind of stuff, but start setting yourself up and trying to understand where you want to go. And also, I think one of the other things is that you keep that sense of not taking yourself so seriously along with you as you get more serious and as you start working. It gives you a good perspective. And also start, I think early on, try and find a passion, right? Or a few passions, and they'll help you get direction. I would say, start saving early, right? Save early, saved often, as the Microsoft Word statement. But, from a monetary standpoint, I would also give that piece of advice to people is that, by doing that, and I'm not saying that from a standpoint of trying to get rich early. When doing that is that it gives you a little bit of comfort as you're working and as you're changing careers, as you're doing things, and as you're finding your way. At 21, you don't know yet, right? You may think but a lot of us change over time, and that gives you that kind of comfort to make some of those changes and some of those choices. But I'd say, definitely work hard. Have some fun, keep that lightness to yourself. But also one of the biggest things is just be authentic. I think that too many people, as they get older or after, if you look back on yourself, you were at 21, you were just you, right? You weren't maybe you were trying to impress somebody to get a date or something, but you weren't really trying to impress the world, right? And I think some people get lost in that, where they try and especially because there's so much access to other people, right? Through social media, through different things, where you can start comparing yourself and you start measuring yourself and you lose yourself with that, because you're thinking, well, I'm not as good as them. I need to be as good as them. Just be authentic, and authenticity will take you a long way. People will see it. People will gravitate towards it. People want to be around you. And that's where you can really springboard.
Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much, Kevin. It's been absolutely brilliant to talk with you. It's a real real gems in there. And thank you so much for sharing.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Bye.
Bye.